What's going on, everybody? AA Ron here from PanNerdia, and welcome back to another Sharp Objects review. So, last week we covered episode 4 of Sharp Objects, the HBO miniseries based on the novel. That episode was titled Ripe. Now, we learned a lot about Camille and Adora's kind of connection and why they are at odds, these days in that last episode. But this episode, we kind of get a perspective in many of the townsfolk's eyes with an episode that is covering the events of Calhoun Day. Now, I made a mistake last week, and I actually titled the episode of episode 5 Calhoun Day, when in fact it was Closer. So, I do apologize for that. No excuses. The title of episode 5 is Closer. So let's take a closer look. The episode actually does start off with Camille waking up and kind of remembering that, she ended up finding Emma later on that evening, the past evening, when she was with John at the bar, and he had mentioned that Emma, Anne, and Natalie all played together in that weird barn. So she got scared and ran off to go find her. And the episode made it seem like she found her dead, and another car found her like you thought that was the person who killed her. Well, it was in fact Camille finding Emma and bringing her back home. So the day starts off with her waking up thinking that, and then it shows Dora getting ready, and people are already setting up for Calhoun Day. Even old Alan coming in and asking what uniform he should wear. All right, that guy does kind of give me the creeps, though, for sure. We then get some more connection with Camille and Frank Curry, her editor, or her boss, essentially, over at the St. Louis Chronicle. And she's, giving him what he wants to hear. She released another article. Still not the full thing, not everything he's looking for, but it's enough to get him wild up in a good way. But he can kind of tell that she's already kind of getting broken down by being back home now, especially with dealing with her mother and the past. Speaking of the past, we get a shot of when Camille is actually leaving her room after talking to Frank. She drops one of her water bottles, vodka bottles, into her mother's room. And you know how she is. She kind of like creeps her toes in. But she never really steps in. She was always, I guess, told as a young child to never go in there, or she was always intimidated to. So she has this flashback of when a magazine's actually there, sent the photographer there to take pictures of her home and all that it is, especially the ivory bathroom floor. So, pretty interesting. We'll learn more about that as the episode goes on. Kind of gives you some back history on the money that is involved with this particular family. And we get another kind of scene with the sister. But essentially in this scene, Camille sneaks in and plays with the camera, but she tracks in mud on the floor, and so of course, mother just thinks she's ripe. We then get a flash over to Detective Richard. As he starts his day, he goes over to the barbershop, try to get a shave. He sees Bill Vickery there, the chief, and tries to talk to him like, look, it's not really a good idea to do this. The killer could be there. And he, suggests otherwise, saying, hey, I need you there. We need to be looking out, but I'm not worried about anything. All right, it's going to be a good time. Flashback to the Krellin's residence. And Emma is getting ready for the play, because the play is today on Calhoun Day. And we kind of get a nice sister-sister connection between her and Camille, because Camille offers to read the lines to help her practice. And we then kind of get a notion from Adora that, hey, is that what you're wearing? Let's go and pick out something. Already this kind of, if you kind of know Camille and what she wears, all long sleeves, he's already, as a viewer, you're like, all right, where is this going? Like, where is this going? So they all go on this field trip, right? But before they do, right, Emma's kind of on her phone back and forth, and she finds out about Camille's article released, and that her friend, I believe her friend's that's the little sister of John Keene's girlfriend, right? The cheerleader one. So I guess she found out that, and we'll get more into her later in this episode, but it kind of makes Emma pissed, I guess, and she starts acting like her shitty self, like the POS shitty side of her that happened a few episodes back. So they go shopping, and before they walk in, the lady who owns the place is like, "Oh, who's this beautiful creature?" And she's like, "Oh, that's my oldest daughter. She takes after her father and stuff." And she kind of mentions Camille's father, which I've always wondered, like the Preaker, right? And besides the fact that, you know, Preaker farms, so you kind of wonder. But she's like, Camille's like, "You know, I've never heard you really say much about my dad." She's like, "There's not much to be said." And you're like, "Ooh, man, just taking that salt and throwing it deep, right?" So, before we get to that, so Emma tries to come up and get her mom's attention. Of course, she kind of gets frustrated. She's like, "We got to take care of Camille." Emma's doing it for obvious reasons, though. She's pissed at Camille. Adora hurts her poor hand and kind of lashes out, but then the lady who owns the place kind of comes up and is like, "Here's some to try on." Camille wants to get away from it, goes into the dressing room, right? She's there, but obviously she's like, "This is not going to work." It's like dresses with, you know, it's just like, you know, strings, and it's the blouses that don't, you know, leave much to think about. I mean, her arms are exposed, would be exposed, her legs would be exposed. And while she's in there, she's like, "You know, can I please have back my clothes?" And somebody takes the clothes, and she's like, "Give them back, please," or what's going on? And it's Adora, and then Emma's out there, and she insists that Emma needs to go out because her mom wants to see her because she's in a hurry, and her mom knows about this shit, so it's almost like she's pressing it for a reason. Like, she's being that cold, not like she's playing dumb, right? In a dumb way. And Camille gets frustrated and opens up the door, throws a dress in her mom's face, and exposes herself to her mother, which I guess she says later, I didn't remember it being that bad. And then Emma, for the first time, sees all the scars, all the words, all over her body, her arms, her legs, and she's shocked. It was a shocking scene, man. I was wondering who that's close to her who doesn't know about this yet was going to finally see that, and it finally came to light this episode. I'm surprised the detective hasn't seen yet, but from last episode, she still plays it cool. She made sure he didn't see anything else, right? More about that, too, in this episode. So, continuing, Camille finally gets him to go away, gets back in the room, and just lashes out, and it's a real emotional scene. I mean, hats off to Amy Adams. Again, the acting is just superb. So we get back home, and she's presumably packing up. Camille is to leave. She's done. But Emma comes in and apologizes. She seems a little scared, too, about what Camille is or what she found out she is, and convinces her to stay by giving her a dress that's long sleeve dress, covers up everything. And then, of course, with that smile, she's actually sees Detective Richard Willis outside, and she's like, "Okay, that's it." We get a scene outside, so the festival started at this point, Calhoun Day. We get, you know, Jackie and the rest of the ladies outside kind of seeing Adora step out on her porch and assume her, you know, mirage, right, her costume, start acting like the nice lady she is. She still could be that. She could be the killer, man. Who knows, right? Starting to think, especially with an episode and the way she controls things like this, right? So, but before we get too deep into Calhoun Day, we go back up to Camille as she's getting ready, and she gets another call. Or actually, no, she doesn't get a call. She calls Frank, I think, to say she's coming home. And he kind of talks her out of it, gets her to laugh a little bit. She's very upset. But she says she ends up staying, right? And looks in the mirror, and she puts on this hat. She's just cute, right? And she's just like, "Oh, fuck no. She can't do that shit." Great scene. So we get Camille coming out on the porch. Detective Willis sees her and is stunned, but keeps moving, not make things too obvious, and she kind of works her way towards him. And that's kind of this setup, right? And this is where it gets real interesting. The way this interaction, it's like one big scene filmed at once with different vantage points and perspectives from other characters. And they all kind of look and watch each other and what each other are doing throughout the episode, and it's very interesting. So it's going to get kind of fast-paced from here on out, now since Calhoun Day is starting and everybody's kind of delving in. It's really interesting. First interaction that we haven't really got to see yet is Bob, Nash, and Richard. So they bump into each other, and Bob's already, saying, what, are you following me? What are you doing here? And Detective's like, just have a good time here, man. And he walks away, and Bob grabs him aggressively, and Detective's already like, don't lay another hand on me, man. You're going to get your ass whooped, essentially. And he's like, the killer's here. And he's like, well, if he's here, we'll make sure we catch him, man. And he's like, he's right over there, and points to John, of course. That's great, because when he points to John, he's walking with his girlfriend straight to Camille, and it flashes right over to Camille, almost to Detective Willis at that point, but she hasn't made it. She keeps getting kind of intercepted by people at this Calhoun Day, and she comes up calling Camille a bitch, saying, you didn't use anything I gave you. I gave you that interview. You didn't use any of my material. And she's like, well, I didn't necessarily need to use any of it. And so she's like, I got stuff. I know things about you, Camille. Camille's like, whatever, bitch. But she finally gets caught up to the detective. Not before she runs into, I believe, those ladies that are her age, which we'll get to later, and some of the dudes that were her age that she grew up with, kind of harassing her, but ultimately gets in the arms of Detective Willis, and even notices that Adora is staring at her from across the party, already kind of setting up her own game, and Camille then grabs Detective Willis's arm and kind of gives that notion that, like, all right, she's with him. Don't say anything too crazy. And then so we're getting Bill Vickery as he looks around the party, and he's making sure nothing's happening. But he's also seeing Adora, who he obviously has something with. They have something together. Even Jackie pointed it out earlier in the episode. She's like, oh, those Krillin girls sure do love their men of law or something along those lines, right? But he's watching as well, sets his wife down, and he's kind of got his eye not only on Camille and the detective, Adora, as well as the big suspects, Bob and John. But as Camille leaves for a second, and I forget why she actually steps away. Oh, it's because Emma needs her to practice lines with her. She's nervous. So as she steps away, the detective is then intercepted by Adora. Interesting, right? Thanks, this is such an amazing place. And she's like, oh, how about we just take a tour? She's just tying them in with their web, man. It's just slowly but surely. But I think he's too smart for that bullshit. He's taking it in. He's gonna go along with the ride, but just to get information he needs. So they step into the house, and when they get in, Emma's actually in there with some of the other people in the play, kids her age, and they kind of seem startled when Adora steps in, but they leave, and she continues to show Detective Willis around. First stop is her hand-painted silk walls, right? Aye, aye, aye. Some labor went into those. Illegal labor, perhaps? We get a mean little detour over to Camille, happening at the same time, looking for Emma, not realizing she's in the house, and going up to Mr. Lacey, who's the, the drama teacher. So, what's interesting, though, we have this interaction where Mr. Lacey stands up and says how he wants to say something to Camille, and she looks at him, and you get a flashback when he's the kid, from last episode where he took his jacket off when it's showing Camille at that spot where the football players have their way with the lucky cheerleader of the week or whatever. Yeah, that was him. So Mr. Lacey has had his fun with Camille at some point. They've had history. So that kind of connects with the whole Emma thing to a weird degree too. And I think he might be married to one of the chicks that Camille, one of the other cheerleaders. So we get flashback to the house, and Adora's taking Richard upstairs and begins talking about her ivory floor, with a quote later from Richard to Camille saying, it's kind of fucked up that I walked on it. It is fucked up. But again, it's from her great-great-grandmother's, a gift to her great-great-grandmother or something. But it stayed that nice, and it's like, and then you start thinking of it, and it's like, she's even had Gayla. Like, Gayla's going in there and scrubbing that floor. Oh my God, it's just like, it's so fucked up in so many lines. So again, Camille gets apprehended by these bitches, and they're trying to get her to hang out, but I don't know their intentions. They kind of seem like they're trying to get some dirt on her, but they also want to be her friend. It's just some stupid shit. But you flash back and you see that they were all the cheerleaders back when they were in high school, so she knows them from that. Remember, Camille was the prettiest girl in Wind Gap, so they have somewhat of resentment of her being so pretty and leaving Wind Gap and everything. But she then sees Richard come out and kind of is like, so what'd you guys talk about up there? Not knowing that Adora did say some things about Camille, but not giving away too much. She didn't say about her scar. She just said, she is a peculiar rose, one without thorns. And it's not false, but it's giving the detective some weird vibes, right? Then it's time for the play. But as the play starts, you notice Emma kind of smiling awkwardly. She looks over to her, co-star, and it flashes back to them in the house. Remember when Adora and Richard walked in and they kind of seemed startled? Well, they were popping acid or ecstasy, something along those lines. It looked more like a pill than like a tab of acid, but basically she's like, okay, it's kicking in. She steps up and right here on this scene, her eyes whoop, kind of swell up. It's awesome. A dilate, right? And she's there tripping out, performing the play actually really well for tripping her nuts. And but she kind of keeps noticing that Camille's with Richard, because at some point when Emma's like came up to Camille's like, hey, you want to see me? We can practice our lines. She's like, oh, I need to catch up with somebody, and it was Richard. So she kind of is jealous, right? But she's playing. She's doing the play pretty nicely, and while the play is going on, though, Bill Vickery is trying to keep an eye on both the big suspects. Well, at some point he gets distracted, and Bob Nash fucking attacks John Keene and starts kicking his ass. Like, what a fucking idiot. And causes a big scene. Emma's actually starting to freak out and have a bad trip, so she runs away. And she ends up going missing, of course, so the whole thing's kind of put to a halt. Everybody's got to go out for a search party, and Adora's freaking out, crawling on the couch, screaming, Emma! And it's kind of like, it's a little satisfying to a degree to see her suffer a little bit. Because sometimes she can be a bitch, and it's, who knows where it's leading this show. Obviously, we're going to see more as it goes, but, man, sketchiness. So, as Camille goes with the search party, she goes towards the cabin and finds Emma there, tripping, and helps her and saves her and brings her back. Her mom then says, Camille, can you join me on the promenade or whatever, the big balcony thing, for a drink? They get out there, and immediately her mom's getting ready to tell her something, and Camille's like, no, I'm sorry, I forget what she necessarily apologizes about, but the article. I shouldn't really said article on Calhoun Day, blah, blah, blah. And her mom kind of doesn't say anything. And then she's like, well, I want to talk about Emma, and she's like, what about Emma? Again, being kind of playing dumb. She knows all about Emma, right? Kind of working towards what the mom was really wanting to say, Adora. And as they're sitting there and you're thinking they're having this bonding moment, so as they're sitting there having this bonding, sorry, I had a little brain fart. They're sitting there having this bonding moment. Adora then asks about the detective. You guys are getting close, right? And she's like, I'm not gonna let him get that close. I don't get close with anybody. And she's like, well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Camille. She's like, your father. That's who he was. He didn't want to let anybody get close. And that's why I think I never loved you. And she tells that to her. She says, I don't think I ever loved you, and that's why. Because your father couldn't get close, and you're just like your father. Spiteful like him, and you don't let anybody get close. Cold demeanor, like she said earlier in the episode. And it hits you so hard. You're just like, oh my God. You're such a cold bitch. You're the cold one, Adora. So Camille obviously is very upset by this, and it flashes to her leaving the house in her car, you know, peeling off. A storm's brewing. She rushes over to, well, the motel that Richard's staying at, knocks on the door aggressively, opens up, immediately starts kissing him. They get into a hot and heavy scene. She takes over, pleases him, and then lets him get some action, but only her way. And while her pants do come off, he supposedly is not meant to see anything else, though I feel like he would be feeling the scars. And it shows a flash of the side of her ass with the words "closer" on it. Does a really good job of showing these words, but I guess why does she carve these words? I'm wondering if we get an episode here soon with the last 3 left. If we're gonna get, you know, like more flashback of when she started cutting herself and why she chose the words she did. It'd be interesting, but this episode, you know, ended pretty interesting. They finally did the deed, but she still kind of is not letting him get full see or full grasp of it. So, but I'm curious though, because in the preview, which we'll watch in a second, it kind of shows Camille wake up next to him, though that doesn't mean that he didn't see her kind of half naked in the morning or something, but it shows him talking to the nurse at this ward that her and Allison died, right? So pretty interesting. Something happens where he might find out something, right? We're gonna see it here in this next preview. So let's go ahead and talk about the next episode, which will be titled Cherry. I double checked this time. Episode 6 will be titled Cherry. So let's go ahead and watch this preview, shall we? Whoops, hold on. Whoops, there we go.
My mama says you take your problems with you wherever you go.
Guess what we found
So
today?
definitely be getting some flashbacks with the cheerleader stuff, but then, you know, Adora helps them find a bike in one of the Preaker farms. Maybe that's kind of set up a certain way. Oh, we get some more sister bonding time with her and Emma. Well, how are they bonding? Well, they're bonding through acid. Or whatever they're taking. But essentially, here, let's watch it again, because I think I cut it short at one point. No, it's about the same.
You take your problems with you
but I'll play it again so everybody can see.
Guess what we found?
We get some more of that past.
Thanks to your mom.
Richard finds a bike in a Preaker farm pond, pig farm pond. Somebody's touching Camille's back, scarred back.
Bad things are gonna happen.
Presumably Emma. And we get some weird, interesting kissing going on. Acid taken. Boom. It's gonna be a very interesting episode. And interesting, I mean by essentially, I figured by only 3 episodes left, it'd be getting even more fast-paced. And perhaps I'm wrong by that preview. That one seemed even more building between the sisters. But how these episodes go, they do reveal a lot. So what do I think is going to happen on tonight's episode? Episode 6, Cherry. I think they're going to get in a situation to where they want to work together. The sisters, that is. Emma's going to find a bond with her where she's going to want to leave with Camille somehow. Or she might get close enough to expose something about Adora that Camille doesn't know, right? Or perhaps even about Alan's creepy ass. Or perhaps that she knows that Adora and the Chief do shit together, right? I feel like they're going to get some kind of close bond where something's going to get revealed that way. Though, I also believe that by the preview, Detective Willis knows a little bit more about Camille than we think. Whether he knew beforehand and is delving in or not, or he's been one of her suspects, or, I mean, she's been one of his suspects the whole time and he hasn't revealed it. Which, that could almost be an obvious, but that could definitely be a thing. She's his third suspect. And he doesn't want to reveal it. But he's laying pipe to one of his suspects, so that's never good, right? Either way, I'm going to give episode 5, Closer, I'd say a good 9 out of 10. The acting was superb. Now, it didn't get its straight monologue-esque scenes until the end to really drive it home, but the intensity, right? The tense scene of Calhoun Day is what made it so great. The way it was filmed, again with that light, how they had to hold their hands in front of their face. It was a bright, hot day. How everybody was kind of watching each other. You know, even with the drug. That when I watched the scene where Emma had, you know, took the drugs on the stage, it was giving me such anxiety. It was palpable, you know. So like, I applaud the directors of this episode. It knocked it out of the park, man. They really did. And the acting always is superb. The reveals weren't anything too crazy, besides the fact that Adora doesn't love Camille, but we already knew that. But all in all, like I said, about 9 out of 10, I'd give that episode. So, I'm going to get ready to watch episode 6 of Sharp Objects, Cherry. And you guys go do the same. No watch party this weekend. I'm just going to chill out. I'm a little tired. I went 2 full days of the EV day and went to see Joe Rogan live last night. I'm pooped, man. And I finished a painting. I did a lot this weekend. I just kind of want to chill. So, thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate it. I'll be back next week to review episode 6 and preview episode 7. We're getting close, guys. We're getting close. Episode 8 is the last episode. And then we'll be back after this show wraps up, perhaps with some more Walker Talkers, maybe like a podcast to sum up things, or some kind of podcast talking about Better Call Saul, or some kind of podcast talking about My Hero Academia, or some kind of podcast talking about Dragon Ball, or some kind of podcast talking about all that shit. I don't know. Something we're thinking about. It might be pretty blastacular. Either way, I'll see you guys next time. Check me out on PanNerdia Twitch channel, twitch.tv/PanNerdia. I do a lot of live painting there. I'm getting ready for CommanderCon 2019, so check me over there. Check me on Twitter as well. You'll see me post a lot of that kind of shit. And check out the rest of the YouTube channel. If you like this stuff, subscribe, like this, comment. Just explore the channel. I think you'll find some stuff you like. Again, thanks for joining. I'm Aaron, and I'll see you guys later. Enjoy tonight's episode.